Alright, for this video I'm going to try something a little bit new. I'm going to do this commentary as I'm reading the article, so this is not at all scripted. I'm just reading and saying exactly what comes to mind. So because of that, there are a few things you should know. John Brandon, who wrote this article, so I know who to blame, he undoubtedly had some time writing this article, so I'm going to be going off the cuff, whereas he had time to develop his thoughts. So I'm going to miss a few criticisms, I'm sure. In addition, there might be some mild language in this video. I'm not going to try to use any language, but if it's off the cuff, you know how it is. Probably going to be some mild language. Shouldn't be a big deal to most of you, but I thought I'd let you know. And like I said, I'm going to be commenting as I'm reading. So hopefully the video and audio sync up alright. And this is some new software I'm using. This is the same thing I used for the response to your comments on my video. But I haven't used it for a video quite like this before. I haven't done a video quite like this before. I'm already rambling, so let's get going. Alright, title. Is Bulletstorm the worst video game in the world? Alright, by going that superlative, they've already got themselves into a world of trouble that he has, John Brandon. Really, the worst video game in the world? Ever. You really opening yourself up to that type of criticism? Alright, for those of you who like the angry video game nerd, there's a video called Atari Porn, which is about porn games for the Atari 2600. Obviously, that's a video you should only watch if you're 18 or older, but it's really messed up some of the video games on the Atari 2600. I'll just tell you a little bit about the worst. The worst was a game, in my opinion, was a game called Custer's Revenge. Essentially, the whole setup of the game is to rape somebody. It is also racist and sexist. Really, so Fox News, you're telling me that Bulletstorm is the worst game in the world, ever. So you're saying this is worse than Custer's Revenge. I mean, that's one of the most infamous games ever. That one should have been banned. And you guys know I do not normally say that about video games. But let's get going. I'm sure the rest of this article is going to be completely reasonable, right? An artist's recreation of a scene from the controversial video game Bulletstorm. Really? Controversial video game? Well, there was no controversy until you created it with this article, so looks like he had his goal already in mind. Takes violence, vulgar language, sexual innuendos to a new level. No, it really doesn't. Alright, first line. Parents had better beware. Wow, they didn't waste any time here, did they? There's a Bulletstorm on the horizon. Wow. Parents had better beware is how they started off. So, immediately, you can tell they're biased. They're not even beginning to try to do actual reporting. And in some cases, that's okay. I mean, you're allowed to have opinion articles on your website. Not all news is supposed to be actual news. In our newspapers, we also expect opinion articles, and that's fine. But really, you're going to start off with parents who better beware, scare tactics already? I mean, I shouldn't be surprised if they just jumped into that so quickly. Fox News did this a ton with the other commentaries I've done. It just really surprises me how quickly they got into this. There's a Bulletstorm on the horizon. Okay, I'm trying to scare you. In the new video game Bulletstorm, due February 22nd, players are rewarded for shooting enemies in the private parts, such as buttocks. There's an excess of profanity, of course, and the frequency of F-words. Isn't there only one F-word? And Bulletstorm is particularly gruesome with body parts that explode all over the screen. Well, it's a good thing these guys never found out that Fallout existed, or they'd be really pissed off. Excess of profanity, yeah, but it's meant to be an over-the-top funny type of game. Frequent use of the F-word. Who cares? You hear that on late-night TV. Rewarded for shooting enemies in private parts, such as buttocks. Yeah, okay, and it's an over-the-top funny game. It's not meant to be taken seriously. And what's wrong with that for a mature-rated game? Okay, but that's not the worst part. Okay, please tell us, Fox, what is the worst part? The in-game award system called Skill Shots ties the ugly graphic violence. Really, you're describing the violence as ugly and graphic? I mean, it is graphic, but I don't think particularly so. Ugly violence? I know it's a phrase people use, but it's just biased. Enter explicit sex acts. Topless means cutting the player in half, gangbang means killing multiple enemies, and if kids as young as 9 playing such games, oh please. The experts FoxNews.com spoke with were nearly universally worried that video game violence may be reaching a fever pitch. This really isn't anything new with this violence video games. Heck, you should know, Fox. You always complain about it. And kids as young as 9, what's their source for that information? Maybe they'll bring it up later. I did quickly look over the article before making this video, so I know they do bring it up again later. I doubt they ever bring up the source. Okay, and then the sexual innuendos of killing enemies. Again, it's meant to be an over-the-top game. And if it's an M-rated game, what's the big deal, you know? Alright. If a younger kid experiences Bulletstorm's explicit language of violence, the damage could be significant, said Dr. Jerry Wichman, clinical psychologist at the Hogg Neurosciences Institute of Southern Cal, told Fox News. Alright, well, it's not for little kids. That's about the only argument I have, and that's about the only one I need to make. I know a lot of little kids are going to come on, and sorry for calling you little kids, but I mean people 13 and younger. You have to understand, from my point of view, you're still little. So I know that's probably like a quarter of my subscriber base, but you get the point. Anyway, if a younger kid experiences Bulletstorm's explicit language of violence, the damage can be significant. You know what? That's coming from a clinical psychologist. I'm not really going to weigh in against a clinical psychologist because I am not yet a psychologist, although I plan to be someday. Yeah, this person's a doctor. Maybe they have some idea what they're talking about. Maybe there is damage to little kids. Certainly playing too much of this could be damaging to little kids, I'm sure. But again, it's not aimed at little kids, so what's the point of that argument? Wichman also said, violent video games like Bulletstorm have the potential to send a message that violence and insults or sexual innuendos are a way to handle disputes and problems. Now there I really gotta disagree, because I remember playing like GTA 2 when I was probably 9 or 10. And you know what? No one thinks that you should follow the example of video games. There's sorts of information for that. You know, no one plays video games that says, oh, I just used the force to jump 5 times in this video game. I'm gonna do that in real life. Like, no one thinks that. No one does that. Alright, Carol Lieberman, a psychiatrist and book author, well, it doesn't mean her book was any good, but okay, told FoxNews.com that sexual situations and acts in video games have led to real-world sexual violence. The increase in rapes can be attributed in large part to playing out sexual scenes in video games. Oh my god, are you freaking kidding me? Okay, again, nobody who's sane tries to act out what they do in video games. And as a matter of fact, how many video games are there where you play out sexual scenes anyway? God of War comes to mind, but that's it. Other ones maybe you see sex scenes, but you don't play them out. And how do you know it's video games causing that? Why don't you blame TV while you're at it, or books, you know? 50 Shades of Grey. Why don't you blame that for increasing sexual behavior too while you're at it? And this game does not involve rape. I can think of hardly any games that involve rape. Except Custer's Revenge, that's the only one I know. I'm sure there are more. That's the only one I know, though. I'd love to see a better source of information for that. Yeah, it's a psychiatrist saying it, but where does she have a source for that? Now, the ESRB rates all video games as a guide for parents, yada yada yada, you all already know that. Wait a minute. Each game carries a letter label at retail, T for teen and for mature, and an online-only summary? What? It's not an online-only summary? I have a video game box probably like right over here somewhere. Okay, look, on the back of the box it clearly says stuff like, oh, it's rated teen because it has alcohol use, and violence, and mild language. Okay, yeah, there's a summary online too. There's a basic summary on the back of the box. Lieberman, the psychiatrist, and others say it's useless because it isn't enforced at retail. I don't know where you go to retail, but where I go, it's pretty heavily enforced. GameStop, even though I'm an adult, GameStop still asks for IDs for M-rated games. Video game advocates say that the existing warning system works fine. Parents are responsible for deciding whether their kids can play games, not the government. Okay, that's a fair summary of our argument. It's a little short, though. We get one sentence, they get a whole, you know, the whole article, basically. Epic, the game developer, did not respond to Fox News requests. But the game's publisher, EA, released the following statement. Bulletstorm has been given an M rating by the ESRB, and we've adhered to all the guidelines in regards to the marketing and promotion of Bulletstorm. There you go. So we get one paragraph, they get the whole article. Why even bother putting in our viewpoint? Now it's like they're pretending this is an objective news article. Look, if you're gonna go with an opinion piece, just go all out. Alright, more important, defenders argue that games with excessive violence and sexual content simply don't sell well. Well, that's probably true, unless they're over the top and just trying to be fun. And that's actually not the most important argument. It doesn't really matter how well they sell. What matters is that no one who's sane acts out video games in real life. Oh, some insane people, sure. Some crazy people, sure. You know, but you'd have to be completely delusional and out of touch with reality for that to happen. And even most of those people do not act out video games. People who are delusional make up like 1 or 2% of the population. That doesn't mean they're delusional all the time, but you get the point. But not 1 or 2% of the population goes on, you know, incredible murder sprees. So no, this doesn't get acted out by everyone who's insane. Alright. Games without sufficient quality of gameplay, games that include highly objectionable, violent, or sexual content, often pump up this level of content to gain media attention. That is completely true, and Fox News falls for it every time. This tactic typically fails, as can be seen by poor sales of games such as BMX XXX and Coaster, said Billy Pigeon, video game analyst at M2 Research. Can't really argue too much with that. Those games did sell horribly, by the way. The most common response set in the US, game makers have the right to produce violent content. If the government restricts games, they would have to further restrict all media. Not a bad point. Penalizing store clerks. There might be a simple way to address the problem. Penalties for selling violent games to kids. This year, the video game will make a landmark decision about video game violence. A California law now makes it illegal for a merchant to sell an M-rated game to a minor. That law imposes a $1,000 fine, but the ESA has sued to overturn the law. And the ESA won that lawsuit, by the way. The Supreme Court ruled basically in favor of allowing violent video games to be sold to minors. Which I think makes sense because there's not sufficient evidence that minors are actually harmed by these video games. Not normal minors, anyway. Whoops. Alright, between a great rating system, alright, that's debatable enough. Parental controls on the consoles on major retailers inhibiting the sale of mature rated games to minors, the matter is really one for parents and adults to consider individually. Hal Hapland, president of the Similar Entertainment Consumers Association, told Fox News. I respect the creative rights of game developers to make a game like Bulletstorm in the same way I appreciate Quentin Tarantino's right to make over-the-top movies like Kill Bill. It's actually a great comparison. They're both violent, they both have some sexual content, they're both over the top. I mean, just watch any of Quentin Tarantino's movies. Those are allowed to be made, because, just like with video games, there's not significant evidence that they actually cause people to become more violent. Melanie Killen, PhD, professor at University of Maryland, who has pushed for laws that govern the sale of video games. What laws? I'd like to know, so I can disagree with her more than just saying there probably should be laws that govern the sale of video games in a significant way. But I wish I knew what those laws were that she proposed, or pushed for. Anyway, she disagrees that the ESRB rating system is working. She says 9-year-olds are playing games like Bulletstorm and there's no real enforcement. Again, whenever I go into GameStop, they're like, hey, are you old enough to buy this game? Even at like Best Buy and Walmart, they do the same thing. Yeah, there's real enforcement. And if you're going to hold anyone accountable, don't hold the video game industry accountable, hold the people who sell the games responsible. Okay, if you're really going to go after somebody, like, you know, I'm against the law that would impose a $1,000 fine for selling a mature rated game, but I have to say, at least that's sane, you know? The FCC monitors all TV broadcasts and stiffly fines broadcasters for violating decency rules, yet there are no penalties in place for retailers who sell violent games to kids. Alright, well look, if you want to argue that there should have been $1,000, fine for selling a game? Fine. But the Supreme Court ruling went beyond that as well. That was about the broader idea of selling any violent games, which would theoretically include teen-rated games, maybe even E10 plus rated games, to kids. So that ruling was a little different. So to clarify my position, you know, if they want to put some sort of fine in place, I don't like it because I feel like it's too restrictive, but I wouldn't be totally up in arms about it. I would just say, it's probably not a good idea. It's probably an overreaction. The Supreme Court ruling was different. Its ramifications could have been an effect on selling any violent games to kids. And how you define violent might be different things in the ESR. Oh. The marketing is clearly aimed at children and young adolescents, Gillen said. Politicians were organizing efforts to address violent video games prior to the presidential election, but got distracted by the election. It is time for senators and representatives to come back to the issue. Presidential election? This article was in 2011. Presidential election was in 2008. They didn't come back to it because they figured out it's a stupid issue. Obviously, if it were just the election, and not as a fundamental weakness in your argument, they would have come back to it by 2011. Are the warnings enough? Again, a biased question because it's leading. To be fair, the online-only ESRB rating for Bulletstorm, which is not really online-only, but okay, does spell out the objectionable content. Even that is too graphic to reproduce here entirely. I'm sure. Here's an excerpt. The dialogue contains numerous jokes and comments that reference sexual acts, venereal disease, having sex with one's mother. Example, I guess I know where the old gal got that link. Alright, it's an immature joke, but that doesn't mean the game. Like, what are they recommending happen with the game? It's already rated M. They recommend a ban for it? Is that what they want? The game doesn't deserve a ban for something like that. The games have some skill shots are infused with sexual innuendo. Read there. One skill shot allows players to shoot enemies exposed buttons. Alright, well this was produced apparently in excerpt. Let's read the whole thing. Alright, let's wait for it to come up. I have a feeling they reproduced almost everything, but sometimes you never know. If it's real long, I'm not going to read it, but if it's just a little bit more than that, I'll go for it. Alright, here's the SOB's website indeed. Yeah, at least they linked to it. Rated M, blood, gore, intense violence, partial nudity, sexual themes, strong language use about that. Yeah, look, if you're a parent, you can tell this is not a game for kids. It was not really that misleading. What's this, pop-ups? Go away. I don't see where they actually got that quote. Hold on, let's finish this up. Video game publishers traditionally stay glib about the issue of violence. Microsoft, maker of the 360 console, declined to comment. What? They contacted Microsoft? Microsoft of all people? Microsoft did not make the game, by the way. Microsoft has only made one of the consoles that it's on. That's like contacting Sony to say, oh, hey, there's a game on the PS3, explain. That would be, to make an analogy, that would be like contacting, it would be like if you had a problem with something Shakespeare said in a play, contacting the person who invented paper and asking them to explain. Okay? I mean, really? Epic Games did not respond to requests, and the developer did not respond. Again, you're contacting the publisher and the developer. Maybe you should just contact the developer. I don't think contacting the publisher is that bright of an idea, but okay. Remy Sklar, the vice president of PR at Warner Brothers Interactive Entertainment, which makes numerous video games, though is unconnected to Bulletstorm, offered the following statement. We don't have a comment for that story. So he didn't offer a statement. Okay, really? You contacted somebody who is not related to the game? Okay, I'm trying to make an analogy for how stupid that is. Okay, that's like if you have a problem with something Shakespeare wrote, contacting Quentin Tarantino. Like, what on earth are you doing? god, it's like, what the hell is wrong with these people? Seriously. They're just trying to contact anyone they can, trying to make it seem like a huge deal and everyone's involved. And why would they contact Warner Brothers, of all people? Because they're a kid-friendly name, and they want to make it look like kids are involved in this somehow. That's why they contacted Warner Brothers and not someone else. In the end, those who don't see a problem with Bulletstorm praise the game for being innovative. This is basically a tangent. One thing that tends to be ignored is that if Bulletstorm consisted solely of beating people up, it would not be fun to play, said Hal Levy with the National Youth Rights Association. That might be a good route to check out. It has been praised for encouraging innovative thinking. Bulletstorm involves developing new moves and dispatching these creatively. Plenty of emotionally unstable adults will play the game and they'll be fine. Well, there you go. I completely agree that, even emotionally unstable people who play video games will be fine. Even people who are legally insane would probably be fine playing video games, even violent ones. They're not all, just because they're mentally ill doesn't mean you're going to go kill a million people. It's a very small fraction of any group. And really, this whole article is really biased in a lot of ways, but some of the most significant biases that I see, just general bias against violence in anything, although they pick out video games. Caring a whole lot about sexual innuendo when it's not even sex. That's a weird thing in the US. From what I understand, in Europe, they're not so uptight about it. And a bias against young people. Like, oh hey, if a young person plays this, they're gonna be totally screwed for life, because young people could never handle this. With really young people, like 5-year-olds, maybe. Okay, but when you get to like 15, who cares? I mean, that's why most countries in Europe and I think Australia as well have a E15, not E15, have a 15 plus. In the US, we have a 17 plus. Okay, that's what M for mature is. That is much more uh, regulated than most other countries. So in the end, this article is really messed up. Thanks for the people or person who requested that I do this article. It's been interesting to do. This video's getting real long, so let's cut it off here. I'll see y'all in my next video.